So City will give you the day's proverb. So every week City goes to one African country and mines proverbs from that country and gives us a proverb a day. For these 3 weeks, this is the third week in a row, he's giving us proverbs from landlocked country in Africa. Name one. Not Uganda, not Rwanda.
DR Congo. South Africa?
No, landlocked.
Landlocked.
Landlocked country.
Landlocked, yes.
Central African Republic.
And that's
How do you know? I told you she speaks elephant language. Now, because you said Central African Republic, we are actually in Central African Republic today. And because today is World Elephant Day, the proverb today is City?
Yes, from Central African Republic, and it's about an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow.
An elephant does not limp when walking on thorns. That's today's proverb.
Wow.
What's your interpretation of that proverb?
Wow. What it means to me is that, if you're that iconic, gigantic, so great, something like a thorn might hurt, but you will not show the pain.
The pain is insignificant enough for you to show.
Or you don't want people to see it.
Because you're big enough, you're too big to fail.
Yes.
To show weakness.
Yes.
It's a good one as well. So what's happening in Amboseli?
Well, it's not just Amboseli. Kenya has elephants in different parts of the country, but there's one very special population. That is the Amboseli Kili West population. This is a population that straddles the border with Tanzania. There are about 2,000 elephants. They've been studied there for 51 years by Kenyans, Cynthia Moss and a team of scientists. And these elephants have been protected and recognized for the value that they've contributed to our knowledge about elephants. You said earlier, the elephants have spoken. Actually, the latest research shows elephants indeed do have language. And they even have names for each other. And this research is what's coming out of Amboseli. It's one of the least disturbed populations, which means that they represent what elephants should be. And if you go to Amboseli, elephants will walk right up to you. They're so calm, they're so habituated, they've been studied for so long that they don't see humans as a threat. So they're very, very tame, in a sense tame. You can't obviously stroke them, I wouldn't recommend it, but they are the place where millions of tourists come to see them because they're very calm, relaxed, they'll come near you, but they are also the source of the largest tuskers in the world. That means they have the largest tusks. We call them super tuskers. And the reason why we have so many there is because this population has been protected, it's never really been poached much, and it's never been hunted until now. So hunters in the past have always agreed not to touch research populations of elephants. They've always respected, this is a research population, don't disturb it. These big bulls are very important in their societies. They play a very key role in maintaining the balance, especially among the bulls and behavior. They police the behavior of the younger bulls. And the governments of Kenya and Tanzania have also forged a mutual understanding and an agreement about the importance of these elephants. For tourism, for science, for ecology, for our heritage, even for our communities. And I don't know what happened last year. Tanzania issued permits to hunt those elephants on the Tanzanian side in a place called Nduimet, which is one of the game management areas. They had 5 permits. They shot 5 elephants.
What do you mean 5 permits?
Tanzania normally issues about 100 permits for hunting elephants per year.
Why?
That is Tanzania's management policy. I am not in any position to explain why. That is what they do.
Okay.
We don't do it in Kenya. We have very different management policies when it comes to hunting.
What does that mean, management policy?
So in Kenya, we have no hunting whatsoever. We have not had any hunting since 1977 by law. And if you're caught hunting, you're punished quite badly. In Tanzania, they've had hunting. And it's part of their practice. It's part of their culture now. They practice hunting. You can hunt a dik-dik or an elephant. But you have to pay the government, and it's how they generate revenue for the management of their wildlife.
Okay.
But this particular population was off limits until last year. the ownership of this particular conservancy or conservation area was transferred to a new company called Kilombero North. They decided that they would hunt these elephants. The conservation community immediately, raised an alarm, and they started burning the carcasses of these elephants. In the past, hunting, it always has had not such a good name. And so hunters have tried to sanitize it and say we are ethical. We only kill older elephants which are no longer breeding. We don't hunt females, for example. We behave in a very ethical and transparent way. But when you're burning a carcass so that the scientists cannot identify that elephant, it raises a lot of questions. That animal, they used to say, we hunt elephants and we give the nyama, the meat, to the communities, and that's one of the benefits the communities get. But if you're burning it, they're obviously not doing that. They're burning it and burying it. And we're now also hearing that some of these guys are even using helicopters to herd the elephants into the game management area so they can hunt them. So the elephants are outside and they're coming in. Why is this unethical? These elephants are so tame, as I just said. They've never been hunted there before. So you can imagine it's like shooting your pet dog. This elephant is going to walk right up to you. It's almost tame. And so for some hunter from America or Germany or wherever they're coming from, to sit there and shoot this animal just to take away these gigantic tusks, which are about 100 pounds each, put them on their mantelpiece and tell a big story to their friends about how they almost died and how they saved the community from these dangerous animals. No, that's really what it's about. It's ego.
It's the story that they give.
It's ego, yeah. And I think it's shocking that they're taking out these super tuskers. The one individual elephant that we know by name, his name was Gilgil. He was only 35 years old. But because he's a super tusker, he was very, very big. So they assumed he must be very old. And they said he's old and he's beyond his breeding age. Well, he wasn't. In fact, Gilgil, we now believe to be the son of another elephant whose name was Dionysus. Dionysus, at the age of 63, was still breeding. And Gilgil was only 35. He hadn't even reached his prime. Elephants reach their prime in their 40s, 50s. So you can imagine now you've lost this elephant to the population. You've lost the genetics of that elephant for all future generations so that one individual from abroad can take home this trophy.
Okay. So let's start. Amboseli is managed by the Kenya Wildlife Service.
It is in transition, actually.
Yeah, it's in transition, but currently.
Yes.
It's for until now.
Yes.
It's under the Kenya Wildlife Service.
Correct.
The elephant population in Amboseli then is protected by KWS.
Yes.
Right? Do they migrate? Do they cross over to Savo, to Chulu?
Oh, yeah. These elephants move over huge areas.
Okay.
The elephants in Amboseli number about 2,000. And we know that I think about 600 of them cross the international border. It's literally right there. Amboseli is right on the border. So they cross into Tanzania, they go up Kilimanjaro, they move in lots of different directions.
Okay. So on the Tanzania side, how are these conservation areas managed? Is it government? Is it private? Is it community?
It is under what they call game management areas. So they give concessions to companies to run them. And those companies are usually interested in them because of hunting.
Okay. So a park will be given to a company.
It's not really, I wouldn't call it a park. National parks, there's no hunting inside of national parks.
Right.
That's just a conservation or maybe a name which signifies there's no hunting inside a national park. Surrounding the parks are what they call game management areas. And in those areas,
these are like conservancies.
It's kind of like a reserve. In Kenya, we have reserves which are under the county. They're managed by the county, but the county could also choose, and conservancies are privately owned. In this country, they're privately owned.
Yep.
In Tanzania, these game management areas are still owned by government, but you can take a lease on a game management area.
Okay. So when it's issued to a private company, does it come with conditions?
It does come with
This is
conditions.
what you should do
Absolutely.
to continue the conservation of the flora and fauna here.
Yes.
Okay. And those conditions would then be the ones that restrict you from hunting unless you're given a license.
Exactly.
So then there were 5 licenses that were issued last year, you said?
Yes.
And 4 jumbos were killed.
5 elephants were killed, of which 4 we believe to have come from the Amboseli population.
The Amboseli population, 4 of them had crossed over into TZ.
Yeah. I wouldn't say crossed over. These elephants live in both countries.
Okay.
Right? I don't want to say we own them, they own them. No. I mean, these elephants live in an area. They don't care about international boundaries.
Okay. This company that is currently managing this game management area, how long have they been in this particular park?
Oh, they only got the license for this particular location, I think in 2021.
So just about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why they wouldn't know that Gilgil is a young super
no.
tusker.
If you are
Because they're
in the
saying
hunting
that-
business,
Yeah.
if you're in the hunting business, right, it is assumed by the hunters who are coming from abroad who are spending big money that you, as the
As the
hunting
guides.
company, you know how to age an elephant.
Okay.
They should know how to.
So there's no excuse for them.
No.
You
There's
know,
no
you can't say that, maybe this one, it's 35, but it looked 95.
There is no excuse. And look, they've come into an area, you can't tell me a company has come into an area and hasn't done research on why have they never hunted elephants in that area? Why did the previous concessionaires never hunt elephants in that area when there are so many elephants, and especially big tuskers?
Something I'd like to understand, when people permit big game hunting, there's a logic behind it. Oh, what is this logic? If it exists, of course.
Money?
Beyond money, there are those who say it's culling. Maybe the population of that particular group of animals has grown. There are many.
See, Tanzania has 60,000 elephants.
60,000.
Taking out 100 is nothing to do with managing numbers.
How many elephants again?
100.
60,000.
They have 60,000.
Population.
They hunt 100. Because you can't hunt babies or
Mothers,
females.
Yes.
You can only hunt the bulls. Removing bulls is not going to stop your population from growing. It's not going to reduce your population.
How many do we have?
Kenya has around 40,000 elephants now.
How many elephants do we need or not? No, let me reverse the question. No. The ecosystem within which the elephants breed, what is the number that you'd need to have to reach saturation point where you say this ecosystem cannot take this number?
So I don't think that's particularly relevant to this case because we're not talking about overpopulation. Tanzania's elephants in the last 10 years declined by 75%. And that was because of poaching. You remember in 2012, there was a sale of ivory to China and Japan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did hands off our elephants in Kenya, and we were able to actually stem the loss in Kenya. We lost maybe 3,500 in total. Tanzania at the time had over 120,000 elephants. They lost 75% of them because what we saw was industrial scale poaching in Tanzania, ivory being shipped out of Dar es Salaam and moved across to Asia. So Tanzania doesn't have too many elephants. No, not at all. Tanzania's elephants are recovering.
The reason why I asked the question is because we're talking of elephants, and elephants must be talked of. I mean, they stand out. But sometimes I'm just saying it's important to ask an answer and get an answer because every time, for instance, when that fence was built around the Abaders, there was a story of elephants encroaching on people's farms. There was a story of trying to ensure that they are protected. Now, it's a story that always comes up. Now, our listeners would like to understand some of these things.
Sure.
Yes. That's why I asked the question.
Okay, I get you. So sometimes it's not about the numbers, it's about the individuals. Elephants are so intelligent. They are very intelligent. If an elephant figures out how to get into your farm, it's not only going to go there, it's going to train all its mates how to get there. No matter what fence or what barriers, whatever you put in place, that elephant is going to train the others.
Elephants have cartels.
Elephants, they do.
So
actually.
bring a gang.
And especially the bulls, they don't live with the families. You know, elephants are matriarchal. They live, the matriarch is the oldest female usually, and she lives with her daughters and their children. So they all stay together in a family. They stay largely inside the park, and they move out at night and they go and they feed. But the bulls live separated from the females. They leave at the age of about 11. Now, these animals are kind of like humans in terms of our age span, so you can imagine it's almost like a preteen has to leave home and go and join the boys. They live in bull groups, and they move to a different area where they feed and grow. And they live in groups where they have their own social structure, very different from the families. There's usually a very big bull who is in charge of all of them. And that bull will have his askaris. I don't know if you remember when we used to talk of Ahmed in Marsabit
Yes.
and Satao. They had their askari. So a big bull will have a bunch of other bulls who are always around him. And that big bull is the one who sets the tone for the culture of that group of bulls. And what we have found is those big bulls are usually the calmest, the gentlest, the most generous. When we were filming Secrets of the Elephants with National Geographic a couple of years ago, we were in Amboseli and we were watching a big group of bulls, and one of them, a younger one, was like bashing a tree and trying to knock it over. All the others were standing around waiting because, when a tree falls, they get to eat the leaves at the top, which are very nutritious. And the biggest bull, his name was Tolstoy, by far the largest of all the bulls. He waited, and he waited aside. He allowed all the bulls to feed. So all the bulls are there munching away. They're having, you can hear them rumbling. They're so excited. There's all this food. And the noise of the cracking tree attracted a family group, females and their babies. They came running when they heard the cracking of the tree and the tree falling. And the big bull Tolstoy, he stepped aside, and all the bulls followed him. And they moved to allow the family to feed.
Wow.
Now, this is the kind of behavior that you only see in a place like Amboseli, because we know these elephants, we know them by name, and you know who's Tolstoy and who's who. When you see this kind of behavior, you see that actually these animals are so intelligent, but also they're calculating. Tolstoy wants to probably mate with those females, so he wants to show generosity. And he's teaching all the other bulls the same lessons. And so if you remove Tolstoy, these big bulls, you're left with a bunch of youngsters who don't have a teacher, they don't have a mentor, and those are the bulls who are the most dangerous.
Anarchy.
Those are the
Remove.
those are the delinquents.
They form their own political party.
They are, those are the guys who raid the farms, who don't know how to behave. They don't know what to do when they're in trouble. They don't have anybody telling them to get out or to move aside. Those are the young guys who cause the most trouble. So keeping the big bulls in place is very important if you want to stop human-elephant conflict. By the way, it's not only elephants. It's the same in baboon society, probably the same in human society.
Probably. It definitely is the same in human society.
Look at it. Go down to Maasai land. They always tell you what is the Laibon's view, right? They always say that. And if something goes wrong, the Laibon makes a statement, and then all the young men behave.
How long have you been studying elephants?
I started working on elephants when I was in my 20s. At that time, Kenya was, I think, in the worst place possible when it came to elephants. We had a mountain of ivory in our storeroom, and I was asked to do the stock take because we were about to burn in 1989. We were about to burn all that ivory. That was a really heartbreaking moment for Kenya, and I thought we had lost it. We'll never recover because our elephants were dying at such a fast rate. I don't know if you guys remember. It was headline news every day. Elephants being slaughtered. The military were involved. The authorities were involved. And, elephants were just being slaughtered everywhere. And it took me a few years to come back to elephants. And it was because of having a mentor, Joyce Poole, having time down in Amboseli with the Amboseli Trust for Elephants, Cynthia Moss and her teams, Katito, Nora and Soila. These are Kenyan women who know every single elephant by name. And I was taken out in a vehicle with Nora and Soila, and they introduced me to these elephants by name. Oh, you meet this so-and-so. And these elephants will hear their voices and walk to the car and come and stand and just lean in. It was clear that they had a very special relationship with these elephants. They'd already been studying them for decades, and the elephants knew them. The elephants knew their vehicle, they knew the sound of the vehicle, and knew the sounds of their voices. And they would just laugh. It was just like a day of such pleasure. I was there for 2 weeks. Every day was so much pleasure. They would tell me, oh, this is so-and-so. You can tell this is a female, this is a male, this one is this old, this one had a fight with so-and-so, this family doesn't like this family. You know, it's like a soap opera in front of you. In Amboseli, every family is known. Every family has a name, and all the individuals in the family are also named. So the scientists can tell if somebody is in the wrong family or visiting a family, or if there's about to be a reunion of multiple families. They sometimes come together and have a big celebration. It's really amazing to see them.
You know, it's fascinating what you're saying, because the size of an elephant, I'm talking about myself, is threatening. Just the size. It hasn't done anything. And the first time I ever encountered an elephant was in the Aberdares.
Yeah.
And we were told, because this elephant had suddenly walked in the middle of the road, and its ears were flapping, and we're told we're reversing gently backwards because that elephant is agitated. And I asked, why are they agitated? And I was given some lengthy story. The time I was in Damara, but this time was different. We're in this vehicle, and there was a bunch of elephants in front of us. That fellow knew what he was doing. He said, we're going to pass through these elephants. And I said, okay, this is where
This is it.
This is it. Why did I even bother to come in the first place? Because I've stayed at home, watched a movie, and watched these elephants while watching the movie on National Geographic. And the elephants walked, and we actually drove right through the elephants. I got to the other side.
Nice.
Are you saying, the reason I'm telling these stories, it's what you've said is what has made me think that elephants, just as we study elephants, elephants also study us.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much evidence for this. You know, so the work in Amboseli has been going on for so long, and they've done some very interesting experiments as well. And I want to answer your question about why that elephant stood in the middle of the road. It's very possible that he was in must. Must is a condition that was actually first identified in elephants in Amboseli by the work of Joyce Poole. She was studying elephants. She noticed the bulls go through a stage of heightened aggression, and actually it's just when they're about to breed. So they go through, it's like they're in heat, but it's the bulls. And the females also do go into heat. We call that estrus. And what happens is these bulls, when they grow to a certain size, it's only when they reach a certain size. It only happens when they're in their 30s. Imagine, they can't really breed before that. They reach a stage where they can get into must. And the better condition they're in, the more frequently they can come into must. And they cannot breed unless they are in must. That heightened state makes them walk like tall. Like really, they stomp around. They dribble urine as they walk, and the females can smell it, and we can smell it, actually. Right. It's quite stinky, but you can smell it. The females love it. They follow them.
An elephant in must, you can actually now tell this, the smell of this
and
urine.
You can even tell from looking at it. So you said you saw the elephant, he was big, he was flapping his ears. Yeah, so when an elephant is in must, he stands tall, raises his head, and if you look carefully, you'll see beside the eye there are two bulges. They are the size of tennis balls, and that is the gland that is producing the I guess it's a pheromone. And his brain has become very different from before he was in must. He becomes aggressive, and he only has one thing in mind. He doesn't want to eat. He just wants to find females. So he will be on the search. And you'll see those bulls. If you go to Amboseli, you'll see family groups scattered around, and you'll see big bulls, sometimes solitary, sometimes two of them together, or you'll usually see others behind, walking behind. They're just hopeful guys. But the main guy will be walking ahead very intentionally, aiming for certain females, and he'll walk and he'll go and find every single female, and you'll see him using his trunk and smelling all the females. And if there's a female in estrus, he will know it, and he will try to persuade her. Usually he will she will run away. They don't usually agree straight away. Takes a bit of time. The females will run away. And the male will start chasing and run until they come to some agreement. And then usually the family will all gather. And the mating is like a whole family affair. Everybody will surround them. Watching. And then they'll be trumpeting. And it's a very entertaining thing to watch. But what's interesting is if one male is in must and another male is in must, and there's a family with a female in estrus, then the males will really, that's why they get into this condition, is high levels of testosterone. And they will just see each other as enemies. And they will smash heads. That's why the bulls, if you look at the skull of a bull elephant, it's really massive. and it's full of holes, so they bash each other's heads, and you can hear the tusks clashing against each other. Sometimes they'll even break their tusks, because one bull has to win. The female will actually wait and see who's the winner. So only a few bulls will ever be in must at the same time.
Okay.
I think you saw a must.
So
bull,
there has to be
those guys are very dangerous. They can be very dangerous because they just want to show off. If there isn't another bull to fight, they'll even throw a tree. They'll throw a car.
A tree. Oh, goodness.
They will do something to prove their strength. In Kenya, we never hear of them really throwing cars. It's very rare. But in other countries, if you go to Southern Africa, you often hear of elephants sitting on cars, throwing cars, tossing even a lorry. They will do
just
things.
Bulls in heat.
They just want to prove their strength.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes and by the way, elephants that are stressed and terrorized, elephants who get hammered as a result of human-wildlife conflict, or injured. They may be carrying spear tips or arrows, or they have, whatever injuries they have. They're also very dangerous. When they're in pain, they can be very, very dangerous because their brain is also not working properly anymore. They're in a lot of pain. They're full of stress hormones, and they will just see any human as a threat. So you always have to watch the behavior of the elephants, and the guides are very good at this. The guides are brilliant because they're usually from the local community and they know elephants. They can tell this elephant is just playing. Sometimes they will play with you. They will even run up to the car and wag their ears and throw dust on you.
That's playing.
Sometimes.
That's how they play.
Not always.
My encounter with elephants is with these Amboseli elephants. Nowadays, there's a place called the Kimana Conservancy. So there's a fence that's been put up to shield the farmers in Kimana from the elephants. Before that fence, I encountered these things. Waking up and staying all night. Watching that they don't get to your farms. And you have to beat on drums. And, people from the other side are just saying because they have seen the elephants coming. And if they enter your farm...
That's it.
Kuisha. School fees, imeenda. Just like that.
It's a big problem.
It was a big issue. Nowadays, that fence has really, really sorted out. And the Kimana Conservancy has actually protected the area because of the fence. Elephants, go to Kimana and say at the elephants that they are gentle, nice animals. People will ask you.
Which elephants are you referring to?
Dr. Paula Kahumbu is our guest. She is the CEO of WildlifeDirect. She's here today as we commemorate World Elephant Day. Actually, of all the years, we've never really had a World Elephant Day conversation.
No, I've heard this for the first time.
It's an elephant. First time we're having an elephant conversation. There's something that's happening across the border with Kenya, Tanzania, and hunting and elephants in Kenya. And today, the elephants of Amboseli are speaking, and they've sent Dr. Paula here to come and pass the message. So when they move from one area to the next, who leads them?
Well, when the bulls are moving, I think it's usually the biggest bull who makes all the decisions. But it's really hard to tell because as you watch elephants and they are making decisions about where to go, we cannot hear them. They communicate in a subsonic way. It doesn't reach our ears. Only they can hear it. And we know that sometimes somebody even at the back can be giving directions. And so you have to watch their body language. What are their ears doing? What are their feet doing? And if you go to Amboseli in particular, because it's very open habitat, or in Masai Mara, and you watch elephants, you'll see they'll start walking and then suddenly everybody will stop. They'll freeze. And it's like everyone has been told, wait, stop. And somebody in the group will make a decision and then they will keep moving. So we believe that the matriarch actually makes the decisions for the family groups. But sometimes you'll even see a group will start appearing to split. And then at some point, the matriarch will just stand her ground and everybody will have to get back in shape and go the way she wants them to go. She doesn't have to lead from the front. She can lead from behind.
Since they have a language, there must be a study that has been conducted as to how to understand what it is they're saying. From what you've said so far, it's you watch how they behave, and when you look at how it is coordinated, you realize there's someone in this group that is coordinating it. Now, are there any sounds that elephants make, because elephants make sounds, that you've been able to understand and interpret? Like when they trumpet, as we call it trumpet.
There's a signature trumpet that means happy, or a signature trumpet that means
Yes,
angry
there
or
are.
sad.
There are what we might even call words, because they will arrange them in different ways for
certain
different contexts.
patterns, yes.
Yeah, so they've been recorded for a long time by Joyce Poole and her team at Elephant Voices, and they have been trying. You can play back a sound and see. So what do they do? So in this way, there's some interpretation going on, and with the benefit now of AI, you can do a lot more. And so the research is still very, very nascent, but it's been shown for whales, especially for sperm whales, that these animals have language, and elephants and whales are quite similar in the way that they communicate. So what we do know right now, you can predict it, right? An elephant trumpet is sometimes a scream, a call for help or something, but a rumble, and you'll hear rumbles like very, very low sound. It sounds like an engine idling.
Yeah, like something happening in the stomach.
And it sounds like something happening in the stomach. Because sometimes you can't even hear it, you can just feel it. You can just feel it on your body. You can't hear it with your ears. and that sound, that rumble, it's obviously a vibration, sounds of vibrations. Those sounds might be contact calls. Hey guys, I'm here. Come over. They can use these rumbles to communicate over vast distances, kilometers, because those sounds and vibrations move not only in the air but also through the ground, and they can listen with their feet, with their ears, and with their trunk. There's no other animal that has that ability. Maybe fish. Fish can feel vibrations with their whole body, but elephants can actually feel with their feet. They have special cells in their feet and special cells on the tip of their trunk. What that means, if you can imagine, an elephant might be 5 kilometers away and is sending you a message, and it's just coming in the form of a wave, a vibration in the ground. If you position your legs in a certain way, you'll be able to tell which direction it's coming from. In Turkana, the people called elephants thunder, because when thunder happens, the elephants arrive, and the elephants arrive because they can hear thunder sometimes over 100 kilometers away. So they can hear the thunder, they can hear the rain pounding the ground, and they will arrive. So people associate thunder with elephants.
So what
Isn't
do
that
elephants
amazing?
use the ears for? I mean,
I know, such huge ears.
Yeah, what for, right?
I mean, come on, man. They're like satellite dishes.
If they can use the...
Yes.
They clearly are obviously used for listening, which is one of their most important senses. But mostly their ears actually are for cooling, because you'll see they're always flapping. And if you look closely at an elephant's ear, especially when it's flapping it this way, you look at the back of the ears, you'll see just a web of veins. And if an elephant cuts its ear, it bleeds a lot. And so I would say it's like equivalent to our feet. When you're really hot, the first thing you want to do is get your shoes off. For elephants, it's their ears. And when elephants are overheated, they will take water and they will always spray behind the ears. I'm sure you've noticed that.
Yep.
They always spray behind the ears. And then they flap, and that cools their body down very quickly.
So
But their number one sense is, by the way, is not even their listening. Number one sense is their nose. Their nose and their sense of smell is, I'm told it's...
Why is the elephant's nose?
Their trunk.
Okay.
The longest nose in the world.
That
How could
long
you miss
thing.
it?
Okay. Because it's also the hearing thing, it's a picking thing, it's a hand, it's
Yes,
it's
exactly.
everything.
The Maasai call it their mokono, the hand. So it's used for a lot of things. It's strong, but it's also very delicate. It can pluck a hair, but it could also punch you and send you flying. So they have over 150,000 muscles in their trunk. They can make it short, they can make it long, but the smell, the sense of smell is so strong. It's something like 40 times more that of a dog. So it means that they mostly can identify each other by smell, and they can identify people by smell. You asked me about their communication.
Yes.
And how they know people, how they study people. Well, by sound and also by smell. So studies have been done to play back sounds of certain languages of certain communities in Kenya, and the elephants behave very differently. If they hear Maasai's, they get a little bit tense. If they hear a language of a tribe they've never encountered, they're not so bothered. So they know languages. They know that this language is a people who could be a danger, and this language is from a people who are not a danger. But also the smell. If you put clothing from certain peoples on the ground and other clothing or blankets from people which have no smell, they will avoid the one with the human smell, and they will play with the one that is without a smell. So they can also detect human smell, but I think it's more than that. Just like us, when we taste or something, it's a combination of senses, right?
Yeah.
It's the mouthfeel, it's how it looks on the plate,
The smell of
the
it.
smell, the sound of its crunch, whatever, how it sounds. So it's multiple things that, multiple senses that come to play together. And with elephants, you can tell when you're sitting in a car and an elephant is looking at you. You can tell if it's like curious, if it's angry. It's examining you and it's reading all your senses. Like, is he tense? Is he hot? Is he sweating? Does he look nervous?
Is he preparing to attack?
To hear Paula speak, you'd think that I would ordinarily
You'd be
be
standing
close
there.
to an elephant and say, okay, let's read each other, shall we?
Are all elephants the same? Because, for example, the zebras, we'll say there are zebras from this side, the zebras from the north, the zebras from the south, the giraffes the same. If you went to Turkana, would you find the same elephant that you find in Amboseli?
That's such a great question. So the reason why we are bringing attention to the Amboseli elephants is because they are unique, because they have this gene, a preponderance of the gene for super tuskers, so they have these huge tusks. Elephants have cultures. So while they're the same, genetically they are the same elephant species, and we have two species in Africa, by the way. We have African savanna elephants, which is the ones we have, but there's also African forest elephants, which is a totally different kind of elephant. They look different, they act different, they're very, very different. But the savanna elephants, the differences between them are mostly in culture. So when we were filming Secrets of the Elephants with National Geographic, I traveled all around Africa. And I was amazed. You go to Zimbabwe, and the elephants have figured out how to navigate very steep cliffs. By using their trunk, they make it into a ball, and they reach out, and the cliffs are very crumbly. And you could easily lose your footing and go tumbling down the cliff. But the elephants use their fist, they punch the ground as they walk and try to find where is the hard ground. And then they put their foot exactly where they punched the ground.
Right.
And that saves them going on a very, very long journey in order to get water. So then they teach the babies. I watched one baby coming, and it was stumbling and tripping and sliding, and the mother was like holding it, like, behave yourself, stand here. And they like really manage their babies. If you go to other countries, let me think of another. There were just so many amazing things we saw in their culture. In Namibia, in the desert, the same savanna elephants living in a desert, true desert. They will walk through the valleys, and the trees are very tall, and most of the branches are out of reach for the families. The bulls will walk, pluck branches, and leave them for the families to come and get them. So they have these cultures which are very different from location to location. And if you brought a Kenyan elephant to Namibia, it'll probably die. It probably could not survive in that terrain. It has not learned. So they learn so much from their families, and they pass on this knowledge from generation to generation.
So apart from the huge tusks of the Amboseli elephants, there's nothing else. There's no other physical difference.
No,
lighter skin, darker.
Not
nothing.
really. In Samburu, we have some elephants which have pink patches on them. That's a genetic strange thing which is unique to that population. Every population is kind of determined by its environment. So if you go to Shimba Hills, the elephants there live in forests. They live in small, small families. You'll find there 4 or 5 individuals in a family. But if you go to Amboseli, a family could be 20, 30 elephants, sometimes 40, and they will all stay together. So they live in a wide open environment, and you find elephants change their social structure and their behavior depending on the environment around them. If they need water, they will do longer migrations. If they're in a very dry area, if you go to northern Kenya, they do huge migrations, thousands of kilometers. In Amboseli, they move daily from the park to the outside and back into the park. So it's very, very much associated with the physical environment that they're living in and the food resources that are available to them.
How do they manage their elderly?
Oh, what a great question. So an old elephant is so interesting. They are like humans, but
How old is old for an elephant?
they don't get arthritis as far as I know. So elephants will live into their 60s. That's old for an elephant. Maybe mid-60s. They don't die from cancer. Actually, it's unknown in elephants, cancer. But what you do see is older elephants, they lose their teeth. They, unlike us, we grow, our baby teeth fall out and then our permanent teeth come in. For elephants, they have 6 sets of teeth and they emerge from the back of the jaw. They move through the jaw and they fall out, one tooth at a time. The name Loxodonta Africana, Loxodonta.
So the first
means,
tooth grows at the very back.
Yeah.
And then it moves.
Yeah, the name Loxodonta refers to the tooth. Actually, the shape of the tooth is like a loxodonta. It's a big thing like this, and it has ridges across it, and it's designed for grinding grass or grinding up bushes and things. So as they grind, it wears down and it falls out, and then another one comes in, and another one. Only 6 times.
How many teeth does it have?
They're only 6 in the end. They've got the tusks, which are their incisors, and then they have this lozenge-shaped tooth, which is a big tooth here, and it'll be like one, and maybe the other one will be falling out, and another one will be popping up from behind. So usually it's like one big tooth in there, and by the time they're in their 60s, they're on their last one.
Someone's asking
and it's smooth. It's like so smooth. It's like this, it's like the table, and they can't grind up food anymore. So such an elephant cannot eat rough food, so it will stay in the swamps. It will stay in places where the food is soft, and the family might stay close to that elephant. And when an elephant gets very old, eventually it will die of starvation, not from disease or other old age-related diseases. And the family will stay with that elephant. When it dies, they'll stay there. They will stay around. They will grieve. They will sometimes put sticks on it. They might try to raise it when it's dying, but they will all hang around and they will mourn for a long time. And then afterwards, they will go away, but they'll come back again and again. They'll come back and they'll
keep coming back.
They'll keep coming back and touching the body.
Someone is asking whether they have a justice system.
A justice system.
Yeah. What do you do to those that break the law?
Do they ostracize errant members of their community?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it could help us a lot, eh? I have seen females definitely chastising their daughters. If their daughters are behaving badly, maybe...
What's behaving badly?
Behaving badly might be their baby. The baby needs to be protected and the baby is not being given enough attention. Usually everything is around the babies. They're very family oriented. And sometimes you'll have 2 large females in a group and they're both fighting over leadership.
Right.
But I haven't ever seen an elephant. I've seen the big bulls coming in, or even the matriarchs will poke another one in the butt with their tusk if it's in the way of the food or not going the right direction. They will poke them with their tusk. And young bulls will fight each other, but it's not so much about justice, but it's usually the older female. And I suspect that so much is going on in their communication that we cannot read or hear. They're talking to each other all the time, constantly having conversations and multiple conversations, like having your computer open with multiple windows, because they're not only talking to the family here, they're talking to the family which you can't even see. They're talking to others all over the place. But usually what we see...
So there's no banishing?
I've never seen banishing, but we've only studied them for 50 years. That's not even the lifetime of one elephant. And it's one population. We have so much to learn from these guys.
Okay. So there's some sort of justice system.
There's a justice system, but
there's a punishment.
Yeah.
If girls are left to take care of the kids and they don't take it, tomboys are identified.
They're brought to order. The differences you mentioned between the forest elephant and the savanna elephants, what are these differences?
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize it until I went to Congo to see for myself. The forest elephants are smaller, much smaller. So I saw one, and it came out of the forest with what appeared to be the mother. And I was like, oh, what a cute baby. Look, it had huge tusks, but it was a tiny little elephant. I mean, it was so small. I was quite blown away. Their eyes, many of them, their eyes are golden. Not, ours are brown or chestnutty. Theirs are golden. They're so amazing. When you see them, it's kind of spooky. They live in forests. They live in small family groups, sometimes only 3-4 individuals. They don't live in big groups. There's not that much grass in the forest, so they eat fruit and leaves, those kind of things. They are very aggressive, extremely aggressive. And that's because they've been persecuted for a very long time. Their tusks are not like ours. You know how bulls have tusks like this, or like big tusks. Theirs are very straight and quite thin. They can be quite long. And they're quiet. They're so silent. Ours are playful, rumbling, and all this stuff. I didn't see that with those elephants. They were very, very quiet. And very alert. Actually, they're very, very sensitive, extremely sensitive to every sound. You have to go on the river and just quietly, go on a boat without the engine, and just sometimes people even get in the water and walk just in order to get close to them, because it's very, very hard to see them in the forest. But they form these amazing trails in the forests, and many, many elephants will use them. So when you go in to the forest, it's like a spider web of trails, and those trails are where they've been pooping, and so that's amazingly, it's almost like they're farming. So they're pooping, and then the vegetation that they've been eating, the seeds, are now germinating. So that's why they call them the farmers, the gardeners of the forest. So along their trails is all this food. So they then keep reusing the trails. So now these trails become these open passages through the forest, which are used by people and many other animals as well. So what you often hear from people when they say, even in Kenya, in some of our mountains, you can't climb the mountains anymore because the forest has just become so thick. You can't get through. It's just thorny bush. And they say when the elephants were here, they would make these pathways. They would make the roads for everyone to use.
The agrarian revolution started with elephants.
Yes.
Paula, thank you for joining us today. It's a very, very interesting conversation. Many have said, yes, they've learnt a lot just from listening to this conversation, just getting to understand about elephants. Dr. Paula Kahumbu is the CEO of WildlifeDirect. She understands elephantese. She's been here talking to us the language of elephants on this World Elephant Day. It's commemorated every 12th day of August every year.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.